Pokémon, for as long as I can remember, has been a cherished part of my life. I played the games growing up as a kid, formed friendships over them, did the typical thing and abandoned them as an early teenager, later came back and I've been playing ever since. But a few things have always bothered me about the games. Well, more than a few things, and one thing in particular that has mostly been fixed now, but plagued all of my favourite earlier generations. It's the number of Pokémon types with colossal flaws that make them significantly less fun to use. To get started, I will give an example. Bug types, for all of their glory, are almost useless in Generation 1. Unfortunately for bug types, they have a complete lack of any even medium power stab move, and trying to use the base evolutions like Weedle or Caterpie is excruciating. To this day, Weedle cannot learn HMs or TMs, which to my knowledge makes it one of the only Pokemon not to learn moves by TM or HM. It doesn't learn any normal type moves either. But the point of this video is not to beat up on Weedle, it's to point out the fundamental flaws plaguing bug types. There are a total of 3 options for stab moves for bug types in Generation 1, including Twin Needle, base 25 power and hits twice, Pin Missile, which hits 2 to 5 times and is 14 base power, and Leech Life with 25 power. And that's it. And they're not awful moves, but when other Pokemon get Psychic, or Earthquake, or Surf, or Flamethrower, or even just Strength, it makes it difficult to choose bug types with their total lack of stab moves. The picture for bugs sadly does not improve until Generation 4, when Game Freak fixed the physical special split and added a load of new moves to accommodate it. In Generation 2, Fury Cutter and Mega Horn were added. Mega Horn is amazing and gave bugs a high-powered move to take advantage of, except they only gave it to Heracross, leaving any other bugs still lacking high-power moves. They also added Fury Cutter and made it a TM. That was great, but it only had 10 power, meaning that its doubling effect took too long to get rolling, which gave opponents plenty of time to switch to a fire or flying type and end their careers. Or, because it was Gen 2, use Roar, Rest, and Stall away. Game Freak added moves for bug types at such a weak rate for the first few years, they were never of any use except for evolving quickly and being used to take a hit while fighting the first gyms in these games, which, by the way, are universally super effective against bug types. So the single use case for them, using them in the very early game, is not really an option either because the gyms in the early game for Gens 1 through 4 are either rock or flying types. Game Freak really did bug types dirty until Generation 4, and I think that's a shame. There are some super cool bug type Pokemon out there that deserved better move pools. Now, I wouldn't be as mad about it if the games didn't put so much emphasis on caring for your team, winning together, using your favorites. That's good, and I don't think there's a Pokemon fan out there who has consistently used the same mons across all generations because that's what they enjoy. People love the variety and fun that comes with using different Pokemon in their playthroughs. It's part of what makes Pokemon games so replayable. But with types like Bug, you have little incentive to even try because your attacks will remain weak throughout the game, while all the other types get access to more powerful moves. I've probably yelled enough about bug types enough for now, so we'll move on to rock types. Rock types play a funny role in Pokemon. They're remarkably consistent in terms of stats and move pool. They almost always have a high defense stat and tend to be physical attackers, barring the obvious exceptions such as Omastar. They also serve the purpose of being the early gym type to teach new players that no, you can't just tackle everything until it dies. That won't work on some Pokemon. The first time they didn't do that in Generation 5, speedrunners started using a normal type as the main in that speedrun. Anyway, rock types fill this important niche as a defensive type and teaching tool, but have one lingering issue that still kind of plagues them today. And that's that rock type moves totally lack accuracy. There was, up until Generation 5, no physical rock type moves with 100% accuracy. None. All of the classics, Rock Slide, Rock Throw, Rollout, Rock Tomb, Stone Edge, or Stone Miss as it is referred to, are less than 100% accurate. You cannot reliably use a physical rock type and expect to hit your attacks. Ancient Power was introduced in Generation 2, but would later become a special move, and it also only has 5 PP and 60 base power, so it can't really go the distance. Even in Generation 5, Smackdown, the only 100% accurate physical rock-type move, was only 50 power, and mostly used for its semi-competitive purpose of grounding flying types. There are nowadays some 100% accurate rock-type moves, but it took them until Generation 7 to add those. Rock-types' only saving grace is that many rock-types are also ground types, and thus get access to Ground's holy grail broken move, Earthquake. 100% accurate, 100 power, unless there is literally a flying or grass type on screen, there is no reason to click Rock Slide over Earthquake. It's not like rock types are bad, on the contrary, I'd rather use Rhydon or Golem than Beedrill, but they couldn't just let them hit an attack. It would have been so nice for them, just let them be on target for once. The last type I'd like to talk about is Poison. From Generations 2 through 5, Poison was super effective against a singular type, Grass, and was the epitome of use the moves but not Pokemon of that type. It was super effective against Bug in Generation 1, but that was removed in Generation 2. While Poison as a status effect is excellent, particularly Toxic Stalling, Poison types themselves are unfortunately underused due to Game Freak making them the black sheep of type effectiveness. You might think I'm placing too much emphasis on type effectiveness here, but except for normal types, which are super effective against nothing, Poison was the only type to have such an imbalance of weaknesses and strengths in the type matchup chart. I'd also note that due to the prevalence of grass poison types in Generations 1 through 4, that type efficacy was mostly reduced to neutral damage. Looking at some other types with singular type efficacies, Dragon is only super effective against Dragon, but at least it resists Grass, Water, Electric, and Fire, all of which are commonly used for their prevalence in the starter types. Poison truly had nothing. It was only super effective against Grass, but also does nothing against overpowered Steel and is resisted by Ground, Rock, and Ghost. Frankly, there were some very good Pokemon mostly worse off for their shared poison typing. For example, Grass poison types are weak to Psychic, which you never want, especially in Generations 1 and 2, and Gengar's line suffers terribly from both Psychic and Ground weakness, if not for Levitate from Generation 3 onwards. Now, obviously they did rebalance the type matchups in Generation 6 a fair bit by adding Fairy types and nerfing Steel, but Poison types remain a hard choice. Ground and Psychic type moves are just too good not to include them on any team, and Poison is too easily dealt with that way. Golbat being annoying? No problem. Rock/Ice/Electric/Psychic will take care of that. Arbok in your way? Click Earthquake or Psychic or use a Steel type. You'll have no problems. I will say that Poison types generally benefit from a strong move pool, which include a lot of secondary effects and the aforementioned Toxic, which is great. But almost every Pokemon can learn both Toxic and Protect, meaning you don't even have to use a Poison type to get the benefits of it. Again, this is not to say that there is anything inherently wrong with any of the types I've discussed, but Game Freak really didn't walk the walk when it put in all that dialogue about people using their favourite Pokemon, or indeed just doing a basic amount of balancing between games. It's kind of insane that Poison was bad for the better part of 20 years before they made it super effective against a second type. It's ridiculous that physical rock types still can't hit an accurate attack for most high or medium power moves. Why couldn't Bugs just get a decent 60 power no secondary effect attack before Generation 3? It's just a bit absurd that they flew under the radar for so long. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Is there a type here that I missed that you think lacked attention for a while due to Game Freak's lack of ability to balance a video game? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see me actually playing Pokemon instead of just criticizing it, you can catch me on Twitch speedrunning most days. Thanks for watching.